Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for listening on. You could have been anywhere in the world and you decided to spend just a few moments of your precious time, and we greatly appreciate it. Here on the podcast, we talk about three things: living a plant-powered lifestyle, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview a range of passionate guests such as physicians, dietitians, coaches, entrepreneurs, and many more. And please join me as I deliver these engaging, informative, and high-valued conversations for you. And just remember, the first 5 seasons of the Thrive Bites podcast can now be found in the Chef Doc app, available in your Apple Store and Google Play stores. So what are you waiting for? Come on inside. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. We have an amazing episode. We're going to be talking all things fasting, and I'll be interviewing Dr. Csilla. She's a naturopathic primary care doctor. We go into her various levels of education, how she came about into the healing world, and what she is doing now with TrueNorth, and to get her perspective on all things with fasting. So you don't want to miss this, and I'll see you guys inside. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world, and you decided to share your precious moments with us, and we greatly appreciate it. Today we have, this episode is fantastic, super looking forward to it. And we're going to be talking all things fasting. And so the guest I'm going to bring on, her name is Dr. Csilla Veress, and she is a naturopathic primary care doctor. She graduated from Bastyr University with her doctorate in naturopathic medicine, as well as a master's of science degree in acupuncture and oriental medicine, because she was so bored, she wanted to do more. So I'm just kidding. And she found that the combination of ancient and modern philosophies of healthcare presented a very unique approach, and she wanted to be as comprehensive for her patients because she wants them to live a happy, healthy, and productive life. So we're going to talk a lot about her trajectory of her career, as well as diving deeper into where she currently works at, which is TrueNorth. And we're going to talk a lot about fasting. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Csilla. Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How are we doing today, and where are you calling from?
Fantastic. Santa Rosa, California. It's actually beautiful here. We're in the throes of spring for sure. Everything is blooming. So,
I love it. And you have a beautiful picture. I believe those are redwoods, right? Redwoods
they
or
are.
sequoias. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a local artist. She's fabulous. And so I have a couple of her pictures in my apartment. So yeah.
Awesome. I did a family trip with my mother, my father, and my sister, and we took that Highway 1 route from Southern California all the way to the north. And I remember the moments when we were looking at these trees and we're just like, man, nature is so awesome, to be able to just build these magnificent things, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just going to say it's magical because you when you drive through also like the Avenue of the Giants, they tower over you, and it's something to be seen for sure.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that because we live in such virtualness, right, that we have to be out there. Mm-hmm. Before COVID, I traveled a lot personally and professionally, and this is one of the reasons why I fell in love with it. And so, you can't really get this type of experience until you actually can immerse your 5 senses into it. Like you said, just like really being there. So,
yeah. Yeah, I'm reading a book, actually. It's called The Lost Eden, and it was by accident that I picked this up with Audible. But she talks about the research behind our mental health and its decline due to the fact that we are moving so far away from nature. And
Mhm.
it's turning out to be a fantastic book about really reconnecting. And she actually talks about exactly what you just said about the fact that we need to use our senses, and we aren't
Yes.
all the time when we are stuck in our industrialized type of societies now. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And I was talking to Chef Ramsay offline, and we were talking. You and me were talking
Mhm.
offline with the people that we knew at True North. And cooking is one of those things where it's a great activity where we're involving all five senses. And so, whenever I
Absolutely.
hear about like an online cooking course, I'm like, how can we actually do this, right? And I know that we want to leverage the convenience of technology and all that, but it's like there's some things that are really meant to be immersed in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's get into your story. I love, just partaking and listening in, all these beautiful origin stories, our superheroine stories, because we're obsessed with superheroes, of how we got from point A to point B. Yours is very colorful, just like the painting behind you. You study naturopathic, you study Eastern medicine. So let's start off with that. How did you come to find yourself into these professions? Was it a personal story? Was it, something that you came across from a stranger, a family? Like what in life guided you to say, hey, let me get into wellness, healthy living, but not necessarily in the conventional sense, right? Doing it a little bit differently. How did you arrive to that point?
Well, actually, I was going into it in a more conventional way. So I was pre-med in college, and there was a stroke of luck for me in terms that Rutgers asked you to do volunteer work in the hospital. So I
Mm,
went to the local hospital and I did the volunteer work that they had requested. And when I was there, I was instantaneously just disillusioned by the whole process. I thankfully was not a sick child, or even growing up, I didn't have a lot of illnesses, so I never I did the whatever it was, the yearly kind of visits to the pediatric doctor, but I really didn't have to go to the hospital. And when I was there, I just saw people were so sick, and the systems in place didn't make sense to me at that time in my early 20s. And the doctors and the nurses looked even sick. And so
mm,
I backed off and I said, I don't think this is actually what I wanted to do. Like, my idea of healthcare and the healthcare that I was seeing were just miles apart. So
mm.
logically, I went into marketing and advertising after that.
Of
And
course, why not?
of course, right. And that landed me in Australia, and I did a lot of traveling. I actually did fall in love with marketing and advertising. I did, there's a company over there that's Surf Life Saving. So we deal with teaching about life-saving education, and that was because they have such a really prolific lifeguarding kind of community, because everybody kind of lives near the beach. And I
Mm,
loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I came back.
mm,
I moved to Manhattan, and I did 10 years of working in, big, point of sale, real estate, beauty marketing,
mhm,
advertising agencies. Throughout the way, though, I was starting to really become very burnt out. And along the way, I was also finding acupuncture. I was also finding, yoga. I was finding Pilates. I took a health counseling course because I was
mm,
so into nutrition. And so
mhm,
along the way, I was kind of finding these little pockets, and I hit a point where I just lost. I realized my soul was lost.
mm.
I could not really envision myself going back to work. And it just so happened. I mean, it happened simultaneously when the market dropped in 2007, 2008, right around there.
Mhm.
And so I left New York City. I moved back in with my parents up in the Adirondack Mountains in New York. And I was, believe it or not, it was like serendipitous, where I was looking and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And
Mhm.
I don't remember the exact thing I Googled, but it was something about social consciousness. And all of a sudden Bastyr came up, the medical school that I went to in Seattle. And I was like, this is it. I mean, this is the healthcare that I was thinking about in my 20s from the description. I went to visit it, and then I decided, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And it is exactly what I wanted to do. Actually, even more so, landing in TrueNorth and doing fasting and really helping people in this setting is exactly what I thought medicine
That's
was.
so cool.
And yeah. And so, and when I was in medical school, I used acupuncture as well to kind of heal myself. And I kind of love that immediate gratification. So, acupuncture, people get on your table and, you can, they can walk away with, no knee pain. They walked in with 7 out of 10 knee pain, and they walk away and they're like, that's magic. And I'm like, yep, I love it. So, and as when you're really changing diet and lifestyle, it takes time. So acupuncture is a good balance for that. So.
Yeah. Which Rutgers program did you attend?
Like in what school?
Yeah. Did you go to New Brunswick or Newark
Yep. New Brunswick. So the main campus. Yeah.
Okay. So we probably had crossed paths because I graduated from the New Brunswick campus.
No way.
Yeah. I'm originally from New Jersey. So,
How awesome is that? Yes. No, I know. And I always say New Jersey gets such a bad rep. I actually had some of the most amazing memories from New Jersey, so yeah.
Yeah. New Brunswick is a very unique spot, and it's changed a lot over the years. And I was always impressed on how diverse that campus was. I had very fond memories as well. So I'm glad that you had a good time there. And so there's a lot to comment on this. So it's great that it's interesting how life kind of just goes, right? And, you're on this path, and then you're just like, I'm not sure about this path. And then somewhere along the way, it's almost like looking at something shiny on a beach when the sun is glistening and all these different grains of sand are glistening, but you somehow find something that sticks out to you. And then it just leads you towards a path of, wonderment, right? And I can relate and resonate with that in different ways. So I'm glad that life has brought you to the Pacific Northwest, and it's been magical, for you ever since. So basically, you graduated and you ended up going straight to TrueNorth after that.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. Also another, the universe aligns itself kind of story, because I was going actually to the East Coast because my primary work that I was doing in Bastyr was I was working with Dr. Standish in a breast cancer research arm. And so I loved the whole alternative comprehensive approach to cancer, utilizing acupuncture, utilizing, naturopathic approaches as well. And so I thought I was going to go to Cancer Treatment Centers of America and work there on the East Coast. And life so happened that my ex-husband found a job as an executive chef actually in Calistoga, where if anybody knows Santa Rosa, Calistoga is like 20 minutes from here. And so we were going to be separated. And Dr. Garcia, who is the residency kind of head at Bastyr, sent out an email like right before everything started to shake and move in the residency kind of sphere. And he said, TrueNorth just opened up their residency because the person that was going to be here was going to be sick. Is anybody interested? It's Santa Rosa. This is the region. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, like that. And so it was like last minute, just hopping the fence, and then the rest is, I said, yeah, exactly. It was like, okay, I'm not going to the East Coast. And it just really, it worked out. I never thought, 10 years ago, I would still be here, but it has proven to be one of the most not only exciting, but also just soul providing work that I've ever done in my life. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a nice segue to my next question. And, I get it. I have a mother that is, she's a TCM practitioner. still practices 4.5 decades. And
Wow.
so I know the entire world of looking at things in a very holistic lens. Describe your experience professionally at being at TrueNorth. And you said that it has, touched you in different ways, and it resonated with you in terms of, this is what I thought healthcare was going to, be like, setting out forward. So describe to me what your experiences have been, and how has that kind of shaped you, professionally, to be able to like utilize TrueNorth as being like the gateway of, okay, this is what we need to be doing, more broadly.
I'm going to start off by saying that I think True North is such an amazing clinic because you have people that are extremely motivated and extremely ready for change in their lives,
Mm.
which I think is very rare because
Mhm.
most doctors get patients that are in this sphere where they know they want to be out of pain. They know they don't want to be taking as many medications. They know that they need a level of health, but they might not be at that place of that change is, at that cusp of change. And so that's unique in and of itself. And we are unfortunately in a society right now where we have gotten so far away and we've pulled away from what it is to be healthy. And what I mean is not just diet. So it's not just the fact that we're eating foods that are literally created in laboratories and are making us super, super sick. I mean, it was designed, right, in a really good manner in terms of we were trying to actually help fight a shortage of food in the 1950s. And now what we're doing is we're becoming nutritionally deprived with all these high fructose corn syrup and, all these highly processed foods. And that's the premise of True North, is that we're so far in one sphere of salt, sugar, oil, processed foods that sometimes it takes somebody to become all the way to the other extreme in terms of whole food, plant-based, no salt, no sugar, and even getting into the depth of let's really reset the system. Let's restart the system by doing a water fast where you remove literally all of the things that could be stimulating to the system and allow the body to heal. That's what water fasting truly is. It's like it gets the person out of their own way, and you're healing at the depth, of what a human body can do, right? And that's the most amazing thing, is that every single day I say this to everybody. Like I see miracles every day. I think you have a quote on your email, which I love. And it's like, if you tell me it can't be done, actually that makes me push harder, right? Or something to
Mhm.
that extent. And
Mhm.
I love that
Mhm.
because people come to True North all the time. My doctor told me I could never cure this. My doctor told me that I'm terminal. My doctor told me that, there is no, you're going to be diabetic forever and you're going to be on insulin and it's just going to progress. I had a patient just recently, her doctor told her she has stage 3 kidney failure and she's never going to come back from that. And we are seeing people come back from these things, right?
Mm.
We are absolutely bringing people into remission with autoimmune. I just had that happen a couple months ago. An ANA was positive for years. She had all these symptoms. She was doing multiple, water fasts throughout the years, obviously not within 1 year, but and doing whole food plant-based, working on stress resilience, sleeping, community. I mean, all these different factors that really are foundational for health. And now her ANAs are negative. She's feeling fantastic, vibrant.
Mm.
So that's the sphere of where or what True North is. And that's what we see everything from, high blood pressure, diabetes, preventative. Actually, I should even start with preventative type of concerns or approaches to really rare mast cell activation, chronic inflammatory response syndrome type of cases, people who are on 2 different foods because their bodies are so inflamed that they can't, eat a
Yeah.
variety, so we see the whole entire sphere. We're seeing a lot more autoimmune, a lot more cancer as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much to tease apart on what you said. because whenever I give, it's interesting because we're talking about what does it mean to be healthy? What is the definition of health? And whenever I give talks, I usually have this slide on, what does it mean to be healthy? What is the actual definition? Is it the absence of disease, or is it a certain state of wellness, right? And so even just with that question, it helps to stimulate people's minds in terms of what they actually think health is, right? Is health just not taking medications, or just riding by, right? So many different things, and it's important to shift people's paradigms in terms of all they see is just drugs and surgery. So I guess if I don't have that, then I'm considered healthy. Is that true, right? So it's interesting in terms of when you're in a way dialing the clock a little bit, right? Because we talk about the biological clock, we talk about the chronological clock, because of longevity is such a buzzword now. So we're going deeper, and we're going deeper with the microbiome, et cetera, et cetera. So I love to talk about, let's shift gears in terms of like the water fasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why does TrueNorth, how did TrueNorth end up focusing on water fasting? Was it something that was meant to be done from the get-go? Or was it something where, okay, we've seen this over time, the research is there, and let's implement this and see where we end up going? And then it just ended up being a mainstay treatment strategy for the patients that come through.
So Dr. Alan Goldhammer is the owner, and he has started TrueNorth Health over 50 years ago. So, or I think close to 50 years ago. So, when he graduated from chiropractic school, he set off on a trajectory and studied with some of the best known, doctors out there that have utilized water fasting. And so he started with water fasting as a primary focus of his practice, in addition to obviously the amazing benefits that he has with chiropractic. And he and his wife started that. And so that just started from, I think the first clinic that he had was like 12 rooms or something to that effect. And that's just been building and building and building and building. And in actuality is that the research is now, following the amazing success that we've been able to not only have clinically. I can tell you, clinically, we have amazing results, and the entire trajectory of TrueNorth is built on referrals. He hardly markets, so you can imagine, if you ask me like how is patients experience. The reason we've gone from 12 rooms to now we have like over 70, I think,
Wow.
like patients that can stay at TrueNorth. We have, in the 10 years I've been there, I want just to give you an example of like how much we've grown, is the fact that it was pretty busy when we had 20 to 30 patients, and all of us were kind of maxed out just because it was a mom and pop shop that, we just kind of built it from, and they built it from the bottom up. And now, now we have this vibrant clinic with medical assistants, other chiropractors, MDs, NDs, there's so much, we have accomplished so much. And now we have a research a department, so that now we can bring that into the medical sphere, where we can say, okay, clinically, we know we have this because 40 years, 50 years of doing this, we have all this information. But as you know, and the medical world needs that kind of concrete information. Can we just go from case studies, which we're doing, into more, random controlled trials? And that's what we're doing. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's orient the audience a little bit. Can you define what does it mean to water fast? How long, a typical protocol or a typical structure is laid out for the patients there? And what do you anticipate seeing by the first day, the second day, the third day? Obviously, every patient is different, and I'm sure you have to adapt to their individual nuances. But in general, what do you see from like day 1 to X?
So the first thing that patients would do would be to have a 15-minute consult with Dr. Goldhammer, or nowadays Dr. Schur as well. And that is due to the fact that not everybody can water fast, or not everybody is a candidate and it would be safe for them to fast. And the primary goal of TrueNorth is safety. So, fasting is only going to be powerful for the individual if they're doing it in a very safe manner. So that's the first thing. So is water fasting even appropriate in that situation, in the patient situation? And so that's the first step. The second step would be a really good prepping phase. And so one of the things that people, I think, when they try to do fasting on their own, just because they hear all the hype about it, is that they just think, oh, I'm just going to stop eating one day and that's it. And that does lend itself to a lot of not only suffering, but it could be very dangerous for the patient. So what we do is we actually have patients do a good prep phase. So for 2 to 3 days, some patients need longer than that. But what we do ask is that you start to come off of any kind of recreational drugs, obviously, like marijuana, any kind of coffee, any alcohol, for a good long period of time, as much as people can. For 2 to 3 days, we definitely recommend doing more fruits, more vegetables. If people can do it longer, again, you're going to have better success. And what that does is that it acclimates a person so that when they go into something like a water fasting situation, they can go through it pretty seamlessly, or there doesn't have to be any, effects of the fasting or the detox or the upregulation of the detox process. So that's usually what we would recommend. Obviously, not everybody is going to heed those recommendations. So we do have a full, as you mentioned with Chef Ramses, we do have a full kitchen and we have juices. And so when a person comes into TrueNorth, they are met by one of our supervising docs. So I am a supervising doctor. We have a few other ones that are there to, number one, assess a patient. Number two, if there is any medications that need to be weaned off, tapered, to do that in a very, very safe manner. And then also, like I mentioned before, some people just are not able to fast. So figure out the right program for them. What if it's not water fasting, it's going to be juice cleansing or a modified cleanse, or just eating the diet, which is so powerful in and of itself. So, and then you'll move into the water fast if that is approved by one of the doctors. And the water fasting, so the definition of a water fast is the total absence of food and drink except for distilled water. So we do distilled water because we want all the impurities out of the water. And what we want a person, again, to do is for their body to go into that beautiful hormetic state and really heal from the inside out without any other impact from the outside world. So this distilled water is the best way to do that. Usually when people go through the fast, like I said, if they've prepped well, it does not have to be an overly exciting time. And I always say, if you're going to be boring during a water fast, because that's ideal. But what can happen is usually days 1 to 4, if people are going to go through a heightened kind of detox, kind of withdrawal symptoms, detox symptoms, it's usually through days 1 through 4. And so what we typically can see is nausea, acid reflux. Some people can vomit if they really haven't prepped well, or they're coming in with a lot of stress, or they're coming off quite a bit of medications. Sometimes people can also have headaches. That's very common if people are coming off of stimulants like coffees or teas. Then you can also have quite a bit of pain that comes up. So we do see a lot of lower back pain. We definitely can see leg pain, usually the largest muscle groups. So like your QLs, the quads, the hamstrings, the classification of a detox versus just a general pain. Obviously, if somebody's coming in with pain, that because we're reducing inflammation during the fast, a lot of people can see resolution of their pain patterns that's been chronic that they're coming in with. But if it comes up during the fast, and if it's bilateral, meaning both sides of the body, and typically it happens more at night, that's usually more of detox kind of symptoms coming through. Sleep deprivation is another big one. So you can definitely see a lot more individuals that have disrupted sleep during their fast. What's fascinating about that, and there's a lot of really great research out there for intermittent fasting specifically, but while somebody can come in with insomnia, they probably won't be sleeping during the fast, but afterwards, they absolutely do see an improvement in their sleep patterns. And that is because as people who study, sleep and circadian pattern, two of the major ways that we can reset that clock gene is number one, light, but the other thing is actually when we eat. And so that, intermittent fasting, even that, but then prolonged fasting can be really powerful for insomnia patients. So those are the main things that do come up. And then, as you mentioned, one of the reasons we are so highly monitoring patients, we do that twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. We take vitals. Some patients have to take vitals twice. We have our docs are always available for their patients 24/7. There's always somebody around. If a patient, even at 3:00 in the morning, needs somebody, there's somebody there on night call. So the reason we do that is because people can have things that come up, throughout their fast that we might not have expected, but we do have that in place to make sure that they're doing it safely.
So thank you for sharing. And how long is an average stay for someone? You mentioned days 1 through 4, they go through this. So how long do they stay? Like 7 days, 10 days?
Average stay is anywhere from 20 to 30 days total.
Oh, wow.
And that's because the average fast that we have been doing is around 14-day fast, which we require half that time as a refeeding period. So that's that 20-day stay. And then we do see 21 days nowadays because we are seeing much more autoimmune. We're seeing a lot more cancer patients, and that will lend itself more to like a 20-day water fast and then a 10-day refeeding period at the center.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for hopping on to this week's episode. Guys, it's 2024. What is your intention for this year? Who do you want to become, and how do you want to feel? Some of the things that you might be, looking to do is to lose weight. Some of you guys want to get out of your family history and genetics and not play victim to your medical and health destiny. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's very, very important to kind of look at some facts and figures. For weight loss, 71% of Americans are overweight and 40% are considered and classified as obese. And these numbers are continuously rising. A lot of these are associated with a lot of medical issues, arthritis, gallstone issues, heart disease, cholesterol, diabetes, cancer, and the list goes on. And also having and carrying extra weight increases your risk for COVID. Also, in terms of chronic disease, 60% of Americans carry one chronic disease, 40% 2 or more. Whenever I get a patient, it's usually a laundry list of medications that they are taking at the same time. Guys, if you are looking for a different and alternative solution, I've created a solution for you guys, and that's in the form of group coaching. If you want to be coached by us, Dr. Zhu, and our team members, me and my team, I've set up a beautiful 12-week, 3-month program that's going to be led by your own respective group coach, also led by me teaching you expert classes, and we teach you on what to eat, how to shop, what recipes to go for, where to navigate the supermarket, your pantry, your kitchen, and learning all about sustainable strategies on losing weight and preventing chronic disease. So if you want to learn more, click on the link below, and we would love to set up a breakthrough call with you guys to see if we are a mutual fit. And I want to be able to cheerlead and advocate you guys and be a support for your wellness journey. So click on the link, schedule a call. We'll see you guys on the next one and enjoy the rest of this episode. And on a physiological level, in layman's terms, what exactly is happening when we're fasting, right? And we're just going on just distilled, water. What I like to translate it for people, it's almost like spring cleaning or decluttering, just like taking out the trash, right? And it's people have a hard time wrapping their heads around it because it's like, how are you taking out the trash if you're not eating? And, so it help us to, visualize it a little bit.
Yeah. So when I give my lectures on fasting, the way I always, kind of help streamline it for patients is fasting, I think, can be broken down into the really three main physiological changes that are massively beneficial for a patient. And this is why every single person that leaves TrueNorth has some sort of benefit that they can say. They might go to full remission or full cure, but they absolutely walk away a lot of times saying, I never knew how poor I felt until now I understand what healthy feels like, right? And so that was what you were saying even before, right? Like the definition of what healthy is. So the three main physiological processes, one is what everybody talks about. And I actually don't even think that this is the biggest aspect of fasting, but ketosis. So ketosis is taking fat, breaking it down. The liver converts it into something called ketone acid bodies. And so those ketone acid bodies, our body can use in our beautiful mitochondria and utilizing it as fuel source. So most cells, there's a few that don't use it. And so we definitely do need glucose. So if we didn't have glucose, we would die. So glucose has to be really down regulated in its use. And then ketone bodies are now the major fuel source. So that's positive because visceral abdominal fat, we know, can be very inflammatory. And so we absolutely understand that getting that as a reduced can be very life promoting or can be very health promoting for an individual. So that's one piece. The other added benefit of that is that there is a lot of heavy metals and non-heavy metal toxicants that we have in our environment on a consistent, constant basis, even if you think you are living the cleanest life, meaning like you've changed over your cleaning products, you've changed over your beauty products, you're eating organic. I guarantee you there is some place in your environment that you're still getting some level of these non-heavy metal toxicants and heavy metals. And that a lot of times has an ionic charge that is very conducive, and they're lipophilic. So meaning that they can bind to your fat cells. When we break these fat cells apart in order to use as a fuel source, we're actually liberating as well these different toxins. And so we're able, right, to actually start to get them released out of the system. So we can do chelation on one end of it, right? But we can also do water fasting and different cleanses on the other end to get these toxins out of our system. So that's one thing. The second physiological change that is very powerful, it's called autophagy. This has really been a buzzword recently too, but autophagy is basically when our bodies are able to not only in our cells clean house better than they ever have. And here's an analogy. So we have lysosomes in our cells, and these lysosomes are basically the house cleaners of the cells, and they're working all the time. But imagine you had this room filled, or your room that you're sitting in filled with people, and you're trying to vacuum around people, you're trying to clean around people. You'll get somewhere, but imagine if you kicked everybody out of the room, and then all of a sudden, now you're cleaning, right? That's really what autophagy is that it's not only just getting rid of, senescent cells, meaning cells that need to die, that, we're getting rid of the older cells, but it's also upregulating our cellular ability to clean. And when those cells are cleaner, quote unquote, they function better. So if you take a natural killer cell, right, that's going to function better. If you take a pancreatic cell, that's going to function better. If you take a heart cell, that's going to function better, right? So that's the power of autophagy, is now your body is getting rid of the things, like you said, the decluttering, the getting rid of the things that it doesn't need or doesn't serve it anymore. And what space it does have or what cells it does have are now functioning at a higher level because of that decluttering, quote unquote, or the cleaning process. And then the third piece, which people don't talk about as much, but I think actually it is the most powerful thing in the fast, is the hormesis aspect. So hormetic effects are like why people are talking about cold therapy, why people are talking about sauna, why people love exercise so much. And that is when you put a stressor on the body then matches that stressor. If it matches that stressor and it's not too much, then what happens is that the body's cellular genetic functioning like can be modified, right? So we know, right, with epigenetics, we can turn up genes, we can turn them down, we can turn them off, we can, and so we have these beautiful ability to actually then create shifts in how the body works because we're changing it on this very, very genetic, very small genetic level. And so that is very powerful. And I always explain it like it's a delicate dance, and that's why we have to monitor people so closely, because I always think of it as like walking on a tightrope, right? It's the stressor of fasting, and then it's the body's ability to match that stressor, and it's like a tightrope because it kind of goes back and forth, which is why we always say really try not to do too much. We actually ask people to rest a lot because number one, you're going to heal at a deeper level, but it's also respecting that balance. And we want the body to utilize the ketones and not to pull amino acids if it needs more additional fuel sources. We ask people not to work if they are working remotely, things like that can optimize their fasts. So that's what I usually explain. Like that's the magic of fasting,
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm trying to visualize what is a typical patient's day. You mentioned 21 days, 20 to 30 days, and I'm just imagining someone in a gown walking in the hallways with an IV, out of their arm. What do people do during their stay there?
Yeah. So nobody's walking. Well, they if they're walking around in gowns, it's their own dresses that they're walking around in. So yeah. So everybody has freedom at TrueNorth. Most people will, as they go longer in their fast, have a little bit less energy. So that's very typical. So you're not going to see people full of it. I mean, there are those, definitely outliers that some people, even on day 30, they're like, I have 10 out of 10 energy. And that's very rare. But most people, their energy starts to drop as they go longer in the fast. We have usually three activities during the day. So we have 2 lectures, which is usually at 10 and 2, and those usually last for around an hour. And then at 6:30, we will have very light stretching. We sometimes have like a yin yoga. Sometimes we have breath work. Sometimes we have meditation. So everything that is at TrueNorth is really there or designed to actually help the patient, number one, in their healing journey, but also in helping them understand not only how powerful what they're doing presently is with the fast, but then fasting in and of itself isn't powerful unless you follow it, right, by healthy lifestyle dietary choices. So the main part of what we do is educating. It's like, I say this all the time. It's like, you can't think that you can come to TrueNorth, fast for 10 days, leave and go back to your normal life. And all of a sudden that's how it's going to transform your health. It's not why TrueNorth has been created. It's basically a launch into a healthier lifestyle. And it's just like, it helps people get there a little bit faster. And sometimes, to be honest, people have been whole food plant-based, or they have a healthy lifestyle. They just need that reset because we live in a world where we're constantly bombarded by different types of toxins from many different areas. So.
Yeah. I tell them, it's because of your normal life is how you got here, right? So, and I also tell them that healthy living is a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And so how they got sick. This is how I explain it to my patients as well, is like how you got sick is a lifetime of choices that you've made every single day that just kind of, accumulated. It was what I call like an inflammation bucket. And then, that's how when things tipped over, once that bucket tips over, it manifests into all the things that we see. And so everything else is a small actionable step towards that direction of healthy living. So in a way, like you said, it's like a jump start to getting on that pathway. But yeah, people would like to stay comfortable where they're at, right? They don't like change. They don't like to be discomforted, but that's what we need to do. Explain to us what fasting is not. We hear about it in the popular media. It's this, it's that. Is there any myths that you can help us debunk? Who is it not for? Please share.
Well, fasting is definitely not for everybody, number one. And I definitely highly recommend people do not fast if you are on any kind of medications, because while there are some medications that are quote unquote easier to come off of, there are definitely a very good large number of them that you need to be properly weaned off or tapered off with a doctor. In some cases, I think people are really shocked to hear it, but in some cases, if you are going through a really intensive inflammatory flare, sometimes actually medications are necessary to be brought in first before you do something like a fast. A lot of people will just think, I'm in this flare, I'm super inflamed, so of course, why wouldn't I just go in and do a fast? But I think that's why I try to explain people that hormetic effect, because if your body's already under an incredible amount of stress, you putting another stress load on there doesn't necessarily equal the body's ready or able to actually push through and heal itself. There are times where sometimes bringing in the beautiful scope of integrative care that we can have in our modern world, bringing that in first, and then getting a person into a stable place where fasting can be appropriate. So that's another probably myth that's out there. You have to, like I said, pre-feed and then post-feed a person appropriately. Whenever we've had phone calls from hospitals where patients are and they're like, I decided to do a fast on my own, and all of a sudden I ended up in the hospital and I have no idea why. It's usually either they shouldn't have been fasting in the first place and they just tried it on their own, or they came off of the fast eating chicken or avocados or things with high fat because they misunderstood what ketosis in a fast is versus like the ketosis bloom of, the whole ketogenic diets out there in the world. And they just sort of like, I can go into a really high caloric density type of meal post because I'm already in ketosis. And that is absolutely a fallacy, because the refeeding syndrome is a real thing. And refeeding syndrome happens when you come out of a caloric deprivation into a very, very high caloric density type of diet. So when we do like the refeeding process after a fast, we slowly initiate digestive function with the patient. We start off with juices, depending upon the patient and what they need. We'll start off either with raw salads or we'll do steamed vegetables. And then we slowly move them further and further and further into caloric density so that we prevent refeeding syndrome and prevent digestive issues. We prevent, any kind of flares. If somebody's coming in with autoimmune, we really try to help them, be at their best even after the fast. So those are I would say those would be some of the main, kind of myths to debunk. And I really, really do think that fasting should be done under supervision. There's so many nuances to fasting that people I don't think understand. And the other piece is that you should be resting when you're fasting. Every time I talk to patients, they're like, I did 20 days and I was go, work, BBB out there in the world. And that, while I always say this, it's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. in certain situations. And that is a perfect for fasting. Fasting, you should be resting, reading books, watching amazing podcasts like this, like things like that, where it's not about, you could stimulate your brain, but it's just not like that hardcore,
Yeah. The American lifestyle.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Is it because that you are not getting that typical daily input of energy that your body usually relies on to support you for your day-to-day? Is it because when you're in fasting, in a way, you're kind of allowing that body to heal? So it's kind of like our sympathetic nervous system, where we have one system is meant to just go, and then you have another system really meant to rest. So in a way, does fasting, kind of turn on, or is more appropriate to just calm down and rest,
Right.
because that's what fasting ends up switching on for people?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. And if you think about it, in a sympathetic tone where you're go, 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 and the cortisol is higher, right? This could be even in a work situation. There's so many people I talk to where they're like, I love what I do, but it's a high stress situation. I mean, you can love what you do. It's just still high stress. If you think about it, our nervous system, even though we're not like running from a bear, that's what's turned on. So it's a fight or flight nervous system approach in that sympathetic, which means that if you think about it, if you're trying to survive, your body is definitely not going to be in like, oh, let me upregulate my detox pathways, let me upregulate healing pathways. Like, that's not where your body's at. Your body's like, there's a bear in front of me, I gotta go, I have to survive. And so that's the sympathetic tone that is like, in that high stress situation. So when we actually go into more of a restful, peaceful state, and like you said, it's the rest and digest state, the parasympathetic, we are able to then upregulate our, liver, kidney function. We're upregulating, all this beautiful healing mechanisms are, because we're out of that, like survival mode, right?
Yeah.
So like high cortisol. So
we're going to close out soon. If you did everything well, the program does anything well, does it create new problems? So meaning like, the anticipation is for it to heal and declutter and, be able to, on a cellular level, do a lot of things of getting rid of, right? But can it create new problems? Have you ever seen something like that before?
The only thing I haven't seen it creating quote unquote like new problems. I have though seen situations where when you clean out the body, or when you really start to become like help the body be more sensitive. The analogy I always give is that, if you have basically a fire going in the body and you put a match to it, you're not going to really notice the spark that comes out because the body's already inflamed. And so the little things, it's like, I don't know, am I bloated? Because I've been bloated. Like, am I in pain? I don't know. I was already in pain. When you then really bring the body into much more of a balanced state, or you reduce, I always think of it as like clearing the chalkboard or putting out the fire. Then if you light the match, you see it more pronounced. Like, I have patients that after their fast, they're like, this is so interesting. I can't take that medication anymore because I understand, like, I can see the effects, the negative effects. I can't take that supplement anymore because I can see the fact that it's affecting me. I'm more sensitive to certain foods, and I don't know if it's like they're more sensitive to it. It's just the fact that they understand what it's doing to their body at that phase. So that's what I see more than anything. If anything, I feel like the reason we get so many repeat patients is because they've had such a renewed sense of health and healing that they want to continue that optimal health. And there's more work to be done, where sometimes, doing fasting every year can be very powerful, and you don't always have to do, 14 to 20 days. We do have patients that do 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, things like that. So
yeah. That's interesting, for people to come back because they have this renewed sense of, which is the goal, right? You want them to kind of get into a phase of, okay, this is what actual health actually feels like, right? And they maybe have never experienced it before. And they're like, wow, I want to keep going with it. So Dr. Csilla, thank you so much for taking the time out. What is it that you would like to share, either on your own or behalf of True North, that you want to share with our audiences for today?
Just the fact that if anybody is interested at True North, we do have a phone coaching program, which is pretty awesome. And it's a great way to just have an invite into True North, even if you're not ready to step into the world of water fasting. We also, as I mentioned, if somebody's not ready for water fasting, we do have an amazing nutritional program where we teach people about whole food, plant-based, no salt, no sugar, no oil. We do juice cleanses, we do modified cleanses. So there's other things you can do if you're just not ready for the water fasting phase. And we've actually had that where a lot of people come in and they think they're going to like some sort of spa and they're like, what is this water fasting? And they're like, I'll never do it. And then they end up loving it. And that's the only thing that they do when they come back. So, and then I do have a stress resilience course on my website, which is, really central to, as you mentioned, our modern lifestyles. So I think it's a very powerful piece of why people tend to go into more salt, sugar, oil, more, highly processed foods. So that's why I created that. I am in the process of creating like a fasting 101 course as well that just helps people with all the information I gave you, just really understand, like, if I am going to fast or think about fasting, what are the things I really have to be mindful about? Because there's a lot of buzz out there right now, and there's a lot of misinformation, which is why I love the fact that you asked these questions, because that is one of the things that we're trying to help patients and doctors understand, that, this can be a really life-promoting, health-promoting practice when used appropriately and in the setting of safety for patients to, bring into their...
Get better.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually
Healing protocol. Get better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad that Dr. Allen, did this 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, and his team of doctors are following suit, and you guys have an amazing place. I definitely do want to visit one day.
I would love for you to come out.
Dr. Csilla, thank you so much for taking the time out, sharing all that. That was awesome information. And it's done in a way where, it's important to dispel myths. It's important to debunk, because we live in a ocean of myths and disinformation, and it can be very dangerous when it's not used appropriately. So I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing with our audience today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for all you do as well. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode here. If you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you feel like this is a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until then, please say goodbye to Dr. Csilla. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoy that episode. If you like that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you felt that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And also remember that the first 5 seasons, 150 episodes, now can be seen and heard on our new The Chef Doc app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.